My wife does this thing where she really gets upset about current affairs. And she believes that, our children are under attack. She really believes that things are out of whack in our society, and she posts things. And I try to explain to her, darling, your posts are costing me members. Not everybody believes in your opinion. Not everybody accepts your point of view. And she says, I don't really care about anybody else. This is what God has laid upon my heart, and this is what I believe I'm supposed to fight for. And it struck a chord with me because, to be quite honest, remember when ISIS removed 1.3 Iraqi Christians? 1.3 million? Just about wiped out the entire Christian culture. In that culture was a segment that still spoke the original Aramaic from Jesus' day. So Satan really went after that piece of Christian history. And I remember feeling bad about it. I prayed against it. I preached against it. We had prayer meetings to pray for those being martyred. But I always felt like I should have done more. I felt like, I should have stepped up and made a stink and not be so afraid of the political machine. And maybe I could have organized the churches in town to come together to say, what about the Christians on the other side of the world? Maybe I should have gone to the denomination and said, what about the Christians on the other side of the world? Maybe I should have contacted the congressman and sent a letter from our church on behalf of the Christians on the other side of the world that I hope to spend eternity with. And I don't know if you've ever seen an injustice and did nothing about it. It's easy to do. It's inconvenient when there's a poverty-stricken situation, when there's, an abusive problem, when there's things out of whack, and it's going to be time-consuming, and it's going to take our networking skills, and it's just easier to lift up a prayer and pray that God would intervene. And I mean it, but I think sometimes He says, you're the one that I want to use. And I want you to know something. When we get comfortable, realize it wasn't very comfortable for Jesus to go to the cross. I'm not going to walk you through all that it entailed, but the 39 lashes, on the 40th, they can kill you. That's how close they brought him to death. When the crucifixion was done, there was no blood left in his body. Okay? He suffocated to death. And all of that was just the physical angle, not to mention the spiritual component of taking on the sins of all humanity, every negative, evil, wicked thing that ever happened. He experienced. That's why we think the cross went dark for 3 hours. And for you and me, the root of sin is selfishness. And I think God is saying to us, hey, you still got some time, and I've got an agenda for you. You still have a moment where you can indeed allow me to move through you. And I don't know if you've ever watched those poker games on TV. It's always tense, and you can't see what cards they have. You can't read their faces. And there's a moment when they push the chips in. They're all in. I mean, they're going to lose everything or win everything. It's that moment. And I think for you and I, we have to ask ourselves, have we pushed ourselves all in for God? I mean, now He pushed Himself all in for us, where it's all or nothing. I say this because it's easy to hold back a little bit of something. I love to be a Christian. I'm never going to forgive that guy, though. And the moment you say that guy becomes the place where the Lord says, well, you know, I'd like to talk to you about that guy. You know, he has this way of addressing the one thing, the one issue that we've held back. And it's been an interesting journey in my recent walk with the Lord, because I've seen him say, hey, I want you to give me that, website. You know, you just spend too much time here. It's, facts. We got ministry to do. I don't want you looking at all these facts. And there's some attitudes I need you to surrender, and there's a disposition I need you to put into place. And I'm finding him just squeezing me a little bit more. And I'm comfortable, but I'm realizing it's a decision that I have to make. He points it out, and I go, oh, there's something you want from me. And then I have to decide, am I going to obey it immediately, or is it going to be, I'll get around to it? And as I said on Sunday, I was really shocked when the Lord said to me, you didn't speak to the boat captain about me. I mean, what was really weird is I thought about it. But he's never said that to me before. He's never said, hey, you missed an opportunity. And so now I figured out I have to pay for that same boat captain and go out once again, and this time not get out of the boat, but spend some time talking to him. Well, can you imagine if we were all in, what would happen? Okay. I think when we hold back, you know what we miss out? On the power of God. You know what we miss out? On the transformation of our souls. And all the character adjustments and the personality molding, and we're worried about it hurting, and sometimes it hurts, but it's always good when God has his way. When you're arm wrestling with God, it's best to lose. Okay? Well, as I said, God didn't hold anything back from us, and there are moments when you go all in. Marriage, Bill and Carol, 50 years. All in? 100%. We're all in with our kids. Even our bad kids, our struggling kids. It's amazing how we'll just keep pouring into them. Our careers, our hobbies. And all in means that we sacrifice, we dedicate, we're willing to work through issues to see it come to fruition. Okay? And God, he likes it when you say, have thine own way. It's my favorite hymn, by the way. Have thine own way, Lord. Do you know that hymn? All right. Well, here's the thing. Nobody can worship God for you. This is personal. It's between you and him. Your husband can't do it on your behalf. Okay? Your best friend can't cover you. Your children can't pick up the slack. It's between you and him. And let's just think about what happens when you don't go all the way in. Noah. Remember him? If he says, God, I don't think I'm interested in a boat, do you realize that humanity would have been lost forever and God would have had to come up with a completely different reality? There was not one righteous person except for him. And suddenly you start to realize something. That first, God has feelings. It says that he was grieved. A lot of times we think of God as some stoic being who's not emotionally involved, but he was grieved in his heart. He had regrets. He has feelings. So right away we start to understand that God's interested in the very core, your heart, your life. Okay? And I don't know, sometimes we think God gets upset about sin. I mean, we know that he does, but it's not so much that his holiness is being trampled on as much as I think he knows that sin hurts us and other people. And so he cares about us. He knows that we're making the wrong move. And so many people, they live in a reward punishment system with God. If I do this, then I'll get blessed. If I don't do this, I'll miss the blessing. And so we live in a transactional mindset when, friends, the blessings are yours. what he's waiting on is you to step into the relationship. And really, when we talk about sins and blessings, there's two kinds. There's the sins of commission. That's when we do what we should not have done. Then there's the sins of omission. And that's when we don't do something we should have done. And the worst part of omission is that you can do nothing wrong and still do nothing right. Oh my. You should have done something, but you did nothing. Now, suddenly my wife's posts start to have meaning. You know what they said about the Nazis? They kept waiting for somebody else in society to say something against them, and nobody did. And so finally the Nazis took over and ruined the world. Because everybody else was waiting for somebody else to put a stop to the evil that was unfolding. And so the injustices that we don't address, the people we never extend love to, the social problems that we never solve. You know, when you're after behavior modification, what's missing is the heart investment. And really, if you're going to change society, that means you care. And by the way, when you care, God gets involved. Let's go back to Noah. Do you realize that God's going to send a flood? And this is what's a flood? They've never had a flood. There was a canopy over the ceiling of the earth that kept the sun rays from coming through, and that's why people live so long. They believed that when the floods came, the canopy was cut from the top and the bottom, and the beautiful little atrium that we lived in was now subject to a flood and change the dynamics in our humanity. Okay? Here's what the Jewish tradition is. Why did it take 120 years to build the ark? Because Noah had to grow the trees and then cut the trees down and then turn them into planks and then turn it into a boat. It's 120 years. It's a lot of work. Okay? Scholars estimate that there were 45,000 animals. The Washington, D.C. Zoo has 2,000 animals in it, and that would mean there was 22 zoos. Think about feeding the animals around the clock, caring for the animals, the smells, the hard work, the sacrifice. Sometimes people go, there's a kid that wants to go into the ministry. And he goes, I want to be like you, Pastor. Up on the chancel preaching. And I'm like, well, first of all, every time I get up on the chancel to preach, I'm scared out of my mind. I'm scared that I'm going to do it wrong. I'm scared that I'm going to miss the most important point. I'm scared that I'm going to mismanage. It's not about me showing off, okay? Second of all, it's one part of my ministry. I probably spend 60 other hours doing other things. So, well, it looks so glamorous to be a preacher. The truth of the matter is, it's a whole different truth. And when you put the Hope Center together, the hours that we poured into it, and think about people that run these help centers for broken people. They're going to use a network and all their resources and everything they have at hand to care for people who might not come back tomorrow. And you go, well, wait a minute. That's not a good payoff. It's not a good payoff if you're building an attendance, but it's a great payoff if you're trying to heal souls. See the difference? Suddenly, you and I, we have to answer the question, are we invested in anybody's souls? Are we trying to care for anybody, fix their lives? And sometimes fixing their lives is getting them food, helping them with housing, but it always starts and ends with putting them in a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so, it's hard work. It is hard work. People, right now I have an article on my desk about pastors leaving the ministry at a high rate right now. It's too hard. COVID just took all the air out of it. For us, our numbers are so different than they used to be. Okay? And it's a challenge to do ministry, and it's a struggle to do ministry. And I can't think of a better thing to do, though, because when you're praying and seeing the hand of God, guess what? You experience the power of God. And the way it works for me is He's doing inner development on my soul while He's moving through me to you. It's not about me telling you what you got to do. I'm doing what I'm being told to tell you. Okay? So we're on a real life journey together. It's very exciting. Okay? And I want to say this. Sometimes the things that you and I are so stressed out about, in 2 years, are we really going to worry about it? Are you going to remember how hard it was to sell the house? You're going to be on to other things. Okay? And some things are pivotal moments in our lives. They're a piece of our history and what makes us who we are. But God's always up to something new. And that's what makes the spiritual journey so exciting. Somebody told me the other day, why don't people just leave me alone and let me have a peaceful life? And I said, we're not made to have peaceful lives, Mom. Okay? There's always going to be struggles and issues and trials and challenges. And the best part is we have the hand of God reaching down to help us through every single one of them. Okay? Another person said to me, I'm getting ready to retire, Pastor. Are you going to retire? And I'm like, retire and do what? I'm doing what I like to do. So leave me alone, wife. Okay? I want to be involved in the ongoing activity of God. And I think that when you and I look back on our lives, what are we going to remember? All those cruises and vacations? Or is it going to be the time we built a ministry at the church? Is it going to be a time where we rolled up our sleeves and invested in people meeting Jesus? Is it going to be those times when God was released through us? That's what eternity is going to have on the resume. And I think that's where our souls come alive. There's a passage that in 2 Timothy, in the end times they will acquire preachers who will tickle their ears. And my job is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comforted. Okay? Sometimes I need to come alongside of you and say, may I have permission to say something pastorally to you? And then I say, I feel like you've lost your first love. I feel like, you're using this excuse to remove yourself, this offense to excuse yourself. And if I don't say it, because I don't want to hurt the relationship, I'm allowing you to have a broken relationship with God. Well, here's the deal. You busy yourself for God, and He's going to get busy in your life. And busy yourself, I'm not trying to add to your burden of life. It could be that devotional moment where you meet with Him. It could be the prayer life that you develop. It could be the fellowship, the letters, the emails and texts that you send, the involvement that you have in the church. It's going to be different for each one of us. But we're supposed to be engaging and releasing Jesus Christ. The Lord's going to complicate your life. Kind of like when marriage happens and children come along. Everything gets complicated. Okay, this one guy was complaining, I'm my children's taxi service. I have to drive them everywhere. I said, well, check it out. That's about to change. He's going to be 16 and driving the very car you're in right now. And these are the moments to have conversation. These are the moments to invest in the relationship. These are the opportunities to pass along your faith. And how easy it is to be bothered and offended and inconvenienced when truly it's all about your moment. Well, I think that the problem with a lot of us is inconvenience. Inconvenience causes us to bow out of our Christian application. But I want you to notice something. It might be inconvenient for you to be in a life group. It might be inconvenient for you to participate in the ministry, to even come to church, but you're going to miss the power of God. You're going to miss the opportunity to hear His call, to experience His forgiveness, to enjoy the movement of the Lord inside of you. Okay? And so this is what God wants. You know, in 2 Samuel, David's son Absalom is trying to kill him. All right? And this is what it says. This is amazing. So Absalom is pursuing David. He's got his men trying to kill King David. And it says, the forest killed more of Absalom's men than David's army did. All right? Now here's what's amazing. Absalom is, get a load of this, he's the prophecy of the punishment from God on David. But what's God doing? Protecting His boy. And I just want you to feel the protection of God. He's going to move circumstances. He's going to use nature, human nature, your situation, because you're precious to Him. And He adores you. And He's got a plan for your life. And you know, we don't like some of the things that happen. And that's where a lot of people make another mistake. They cross their arms and pout instead of just saying, okay, God, don't like this at all, but you are my God, so I'm going forward with you. And as you go forward, look what unfolds. Well, we go through the Bible and we see all kinds of people inconvenienced, and yet we see all kinds of people with God experiences and supernatural moments. And I'm that guy that's always talking about your supernatural moments. And I don't know if you had, last week I saw a vision. And I heard a word from the Lord, not audibly this time, just in my head. He told me something and it came to truth. And so I'm experiencing a really robust devotional life. However, let me not forget to tell you that there are some issues and trials and really heartbreaking stuff going on also. So, the good, the bad, the ugly, it's all happening at the same time. But that's the journey of life. And I'm going to suggest, if nothing's going on, maybe something needs to start happening in your life so that you'll lean more deeply into His presence and watch more excitedly how He's going to unfold in your world. I want you to hear me. You are part of the genealogy of the family of God. Your name has been written in the book of life. And anything you're holding back is just keeping you from enjoying what God has intended for you. So, Noah made a decision. I'm going to let God interrupt my life, and He kept the human race moving forward. And through Noah came Jesus. And through Jesus, He sends you. So let's make the same decision Noah made and say, okay, God, I'm all in. Here am I, use me. Amen?